here. But that's about all I got for right now. So Don Worthington is the division manager for primary residential mortgage. He's on the left there. And then we got Corey Lewis. He's the branch manager here in Salt Lake. These are my guys. Corey's been my lender for a long time. He's done some trainings for us on like appraisals and valuations of properties. Hopefully we get him back soon for another one. And Don is kind of like the solar expert. So it's ironic. Our team has run into several deals lately on solar panels, and the seller doesn't really know what to do in the transaction. The buyer doesn't really know how to approach it. Us as agents, we got to be that advocate and just offer options and know where to go to get answers. So Don, I'm going to turn it over to you. And when you're ready, you can add any more introduction you want, but then share your screen and let's roll into it.
No, let's jump right into this. I'll share my screen here and get going with you guys a little bit. Jeff, I appreciate the introduction. Actually, in a later date, if you guys have got some more interest, we can do some CE courses around this. But what I wanted to do is, with everything that's going on in the market right now, I wanted to really make something that's pertinent and lively to what's going on today and the struggles you guys are all kind of dealing with. So I kind of updated a bunch of things, and I wanted to roll through this with you guys as I get it approved for CE in the future. But Jeff, to your point, what got me into this as we kind of get going into this and why I became this solar and jumping into all things solar and real estate is because of what you just said. PRMI as a company, we're a national independent mortgage banker. We did last year about $11 billion, but we see so many buyers and sellers and people that are refinancing that came to us and said, what the heck is on my roof? What it was told and what it isn't, there was two separate things. And there was so much confusion that I'm like, all right, let's lift up the hood. Let's get into this thing. And I was really shocked about a lot of what I found. And so with that, this course is designed to really kind of teach you guys and jump in and ask questions. And don't be afraid. I had a lot of similar questions, like what it really is and what it really isn't. So ask those questions so that as somebody comes to you, our ultimate goal is for you guys to be advisors, being able to talk professionally about all things in your space and in your field. And in the state of Utah, in fact, last quarter, we just went over 100,000 properties in the state of Utah have solar on their rooftops. So you're now, they're projecting about another 8,000 to 9,000 installs in the state of Utah alone in 2021. And you can see kind of what's going on with this new administration. So anyways, with that, I'm going to kind of jump into this. Guys, interrupt me if you have questions, and we can kind of talk a little bit about this. Let's see here. I'm going to move this over here to the other side. So and I'm going to roll through this pretty quick. So again, interrupt me on this, but three things that we're working for. One, before we kind of get into solar, and why I like this is because in the end, solar can really help you maximize your client's buying power. And then as you really understand how to maximize your client's buying power, well, that's really going to help you to stand out as an agent. And so I think these things are all interconnected to each other because all of us know kind of what's going on right now in this market. So some of the current struggles you guys are facing, obviously, is there's a lack of inventory. And with there being a lack of inventory, you have supply and demand. The more demand, right, supply isn't as strong, so the prices are going up. It's that seller's market. And with prices going up, it brings in affordability. How much can people, how much can people afford? And then really the last part of this, I think some of the struggles is, there's 10,000 plus state agents. I'm going to use Utah as a case study. There's well over 10,000 agents in the state of Utah. What are you doing to stand out? How can you get more buyers? How can you get more listings? What are some things that we can do to kind of help you answer some of these struggles that I think a lot of us in this real estate space are facing right now? To kind of get into this, I wanted to break down the real cost of home ownership. And when we talk about first-time home buyers, a lot of people think about what is my principal and interest, right? That's the first. And PITI, right? We've all heard that term, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. A lot of people focus on the principal and interest. And that is a big part of affordability, and taxes and insurance are a big part. But when we're talking true home ownership, what we're really talking about is all of these stuff. All of these things go into owning a home. And when you have these discussions with your homeowners, what you're going to start to understand, these potential buyers, is if they understand these things, one, they're real cost, there's some shock that happens with them. But as they start to understand, and you can understand how to leverage these things to their power and to increase their buying power. what people think versus what it is, there's often a very big disconnect. So a lot of times we'll call it PITIU, right? So for us, my first advice to you guys is be an advisor and discuss PITIU, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and all those other things, utilities.
And I just want to interject there because I know Lynn and I talk about it all the time. What are the borrowers comfortable with? It's not always what they qualify for. Sometimes sometimes the determining factor, the cap is what do they qualify for, right? I only qualify for a $300,000 mortgage because of the limitations in the payment. But just as often, I see people who come in with an arbitrary number in their head. I don't want my mortgage payment to be above X. And we back into that number. And as Don's going to mention, you guys may or may not know, over the last 10 days, interest rates have gone up about 3/8 of a point. So we'll talk about that later. But that number that those people had pegged, either they need to be flexible on it, or we need to find a way to say, let's find other ways to make this make sense where we might not be able to get you below that total payment number, but we have other options to get you into your affordability, your comfort zone.
Yeah. And the more we understand that comfort zone, the more we maximize that, the more buying power, the more they can afford more for the same price. Hey, Jeff, Lynn, a little housekeeping. If you'll keep an eye on the chats, you guys, if you have questions, just go ahead and hit up the chat as well, or interrupt me. And so, but Jeff and Lynn, if you'll keep an eye on that and then bring that up if somebody just wants to mention something in the chat thing. Let's use this as a simple case study, okay? And I'm going to use homeowners associations, right? So right here, what you have is you got there's a mortgage payment. You've got a mortgage balance, and here's what their total buying power. Somebody says, all right, I can handle $2,800 a month, okay? And if they can handle $2,800 a month, actually, I got this calculation is incorrect. I got a different slide here. Anyways, $2,800. If you add,
so the numbers might not be accurate,
this
but
the principle's important here. I just noticed something here on this. But if you add up these numbers of mortgage insurance, property taxes, homeowners insurance, and all these things, $2,800. So that's their $2,800 buying power, right? When you start to increase their payment by $100 a month, their mortgage payment goes down. What they can afford? And so instead of being able to afford a $350,000, this one you lose $23,000 in buying power. So that as you increase the HOA fee, right, it increases how much they can afford, and decreasing how much they can afford decreases their buying power. So when you have people start looking at different subdivisions and you're showing them different subdivisions, you got to be cognizant of these HOAs, because if somebody says, what's my budget? What can I afford? The bigger the HOA, the smaller the house that they can afford. They start to detract buying power because of things are not going to principal and interest. I pulled these just the other day. These are pretty recent here. This is homeowners insurance comparison. Two borrowers, similar homeowners, similar right around that $400,000 price range. One person had an annual premium of almost $1,200. Another person had a premium of almost $400. I mean, that's almost a $98 difference. That premium is, again, a loss in buying power. If you can take that $98 and apply it to principal and interest versus applying it to property insurance, you're increasing their buying power. Here's an example with property tax comparison. This is one over here on the right is Davis County. Over here on the left is one in Orem, right? You're almost, but the other one, the homeowners insurance was $66. This is $98 a month difference. So as you start to take people around the valley and they start looking at how much home can I afford, are you paying attention to property taxes? There's buying power there, right? That they can go get. Another example here, I'm going to use this comparison. We're going to talk a little bit of rate. This is a $400,000 loan at a 3% rate. As rates increase, right, if they want to keep the same 1686 payment, their buying power decreases. Because what we hear, or what I occasionally hear some people is, I want to wait. Housing prices are overinflated right now, right? Well, that has to be based on supply and demand. But as rates increase, guys, right, if they sit on the fence and things continue to climb, that same house, they're going to be paying a little bit more for that. So what I want us to focus on, though, is really in affordability and all things considered going into it, is I want to spend this next little bit, and this is where kind of solar comes into it. Utility payments. We're going to focus on power. We're going to focus on how people can maximize their power payment and increase their buying power with that. So just a little bit of history. Let me set this up a little bit. In the past, when you purchased a house, you didn't have a choice on where your power came from. It was your utility. Your utility was a state run or it was geography based, and that was the only place that you could get your power from. Today, you can shop for your homeowner's insurance. You can shop for a lot of things, but now power is something that you can shop for. So today you can shop for that. Now, when shopping for power, which one's the best? We're going to kind of cover, I'm just going to cover these things at a really high level. Power increases annually at about a 3% rate. Okay, think of it just like your home. Your home appreciates at a 3% rate, or, you know, obviously different markets, but in general, power appreciates at about a 3% rate. So it's just enough that the increase isn't too noticeable. When your payments are made, you know, because you can't live in a house without a power. So when your power payment is made, it's made to the utility, that money's gone forever. There's no return on investment. It's just a part of living there. One of the things that you guys will start to see here is when they survey, well, why did you go power? Why did you go solar? People's perception and their image was really, really important to them. There are a lot of people who want to be that first in line and want to have that newest and greatest technology. There are a lot of people that being energy efficient, you know, having their friends show up to their house and having solar panels on it is a big deal to them. That perception is a big mover for a lot of people, regardless of the financial cost. So those are just some of the differences with utility companies. It's going to increase, your payments are gone. There's really no control. What a lot of these solar companies will sell and pitch to consumers is, hey, lock in the price of your power payment. Your power isn't going to go up. That's what they pitch. They pitch clean and renewable energy. They'll pitch own your power versus renting, right? And that equity is basically, if you lock in your power payment now and the power costs continue to increase, that difference between what you're paying versus what power increases to is that power equity. And again, that perception. And that's what a lot of solar companies, they really just, that's what they go in and they're knocking on these doors. They're pounding that in. But what really, well, I guess let me back into how solar works. And this is where, let's talk about this. And if you guys have some questions. Solar works where obviously the sun hits the solar panels, okay? You'll have an inverter that converts it to usable energy. And then this is your electric box. And then you'll hear things of a net meter. And then obviously your home appliances. So solar panels are based on the size of a home and based on the power that they're using, right? Each panel will produce a certain amount of electricity. But a couple misconceptions, solar panels, as they produce energy, most homes don't have any storage. So if you're not using it, you're losing it. And when I say losing it, it's going back onto the grid. So if you're producing, if these panels are producing more power than you're using, let's say it's at work, it's the middle of the day, you're not using stuff at home, that stuff is coming into the inverter and going out to the meter. And the difference between solar stuff is you get a different meter that can spin both ways. When you don't have solar, the meter only spins one way. But when you have solar panels, the meter spins the other way. And basically you can get paid for putting money back onto the grid. Solar works when it's cloudy. It even works in Utah when there's a little bit of snow on there. It decreases the efficiency on this, but it works on that. There's no storage. Any other general questions about solar panels that you've always wanted to ask that you weren't quite sure of?
I got a quick question about what you just said, putting power back on the grid. And why don't most people have storage packs or whatever that would look like in their home to actually store it so they can use it at nighttime and stuff?
That's what the
It's a great cost. It really comes down to a cost of, because what happens is if you talk about storage coming in, I'm going to talk about California because it's a leader sometimes. The way a California utility works is they charge you more per watt during peak times of the day. These inverters have become very smart and they can actually tell you when is it cheaper to pull power from the grid or when is it cheaper to pull power from your solar panels. So a lot of people in California are going, hey, I'm going to pull it, I'm going to store it in a battery, and then my inverter is either going to pull it from my battery or it's going to pull it from the grid. But really it's a cost thing. How much did it cost? How much power and how much is it saving for me as a utility? But that's the big thing. If power goes out, let's say power goes out in a neighborhood, your solar panels might produce enough to, you know, power some electronics, but if it's nighttime, it's not producing. Your power is going to be out just like everybody else's in the neighborhood. So you would need like a backup generator, or you would need a battery pack.
And those batteries are costly.
They're costly. They're coming down. That's probably where the biggest opportunity for improvement is. Where do I see things going? I see things going to battery packs and electric cars. If you look at consumers, most every automaker has got plans to discontinue gas engines inside of the next 15 years completely. So, I mean, this is kind of where things are going with battery packs. Great question. Any other questions, General, on solar as far as the systems work? Okay. Now, this is where math happens, and this is where, well, let me talk a little bit. Inverters, there's a lot of great ones, and same with solar panels themselves. These are just snapshots of different market shares. I'm going to tell you, Ford, Chevy, Dodge, you know, they're very similar. There's micro differences. There's age. Most of them have a life expectancy of 25 to 30 years. Most of them have warranties out to 25 to 30 years. The decrease in efficiency now is pretty negligible. As far as advancing goes, people waiting for advancements, there's not that much room for advancement in solar panels themselves or inverters. The most opportunity for advancement is in the batteries themselves. I mean, now these are some that are awesome, that are black, that literally feel like shingles and look like shingles, you know, so there's some really good looking stuff that are out there today. But if we talk about what a solar rep does when they come in, they basically go through and they look at the power needs of a house, then they determine the size, and then they put panels on a roof. So what they would basically do is they come in here, they look at the bill, and right, you can see here, if you're looking at this December, January, February, March, those are the lowest uses of power, right? And it speaks in it September, October, November, like in this sample bill they guys were using, this guy must have a heck of a lot of Christmas lights. But you can see how it starts to increase in the summer. This is more the summer when you're running your air conditioners, when you're running pools, when you're running those things, those power increases. But what they do is they basically come in and they look and they see how much power you're using. And then they recommend, okay, to generate this much power, we're going to need this many panels. We're going to need this big of a size of system. And then they go and they look at your neighborhood. Solar, if you just Google Project Sunroof, you can literally pull up your house and it will show you what your house looks like, or any house looks like. And it will show you the fading, how much of it is getting sun, how often. There's all sorts of different things that you can see from a sun just using Google Project, this Project Sunroof. But they'll look at it and go, all right, you need 10 panels, you need 20 panels. Will they fit in this space? Or, you know, is it a house that doesn't look like? So they'll go in, they'll look at your neighborhood, they'll look at this way that your house is facing. And then they'll go in and they'll install those panels on the roof. Now, the question that you guys are going to get asked, most of them, the question I get asked most often the time is it worth it? And if we talk about, is it worth it? To me, most of the time that comes into affordability, comes into cost of ownership. It comes into, are these panels on my roof, are they going to save me money, or are they going to cost me money? Okay. So this is the stuff that solar reps and solar companies really don't want you to know. There are four things that go into the cost of solar panels. There's the actual equipment, there's the installation, getting it installed on your house, and then the soft costs, management, sales commissions, all the other stuff, financing costs. These four things are going to give you a price per watt. Okay. So if we talk about this, what that price per watt is depends on how much that system's going to be. So let's talk through this a little bit here. I see solar typically sold anywhere from about $250 a watt to $450. $250 is on the cheap end, $450 is on the more expensive end. Okay. Equipment is usually about $1 a watt, $1 to $1.20 a watt. Installation cost is anywhere from about 80 cents a watt to $1 a watt. So most of this stuff, if you hear people saying, hey, that's $3.50 or $4 a watt, most of that is built into these soft costs, commissions, management, and financing costs. Traditional solar financing has anywhere from about 15 to 30% of a financing fee built into it. So as you're talking to your customers, you might want to ask them, hey, do you remember what you paid? What was the price per watt? Okay. Or if they're talking about it. So just most of us have forgotten this. I had to look this back up when I got back into solar. A watt and a kilowatt. A watt is 1,000, or a kilowatt is 1,000 watts. So if somebody says, I need a 10 kilowatt system, that's 10,000 watts. So if somebody says, all right, I got it for $450 a watt, that means that solar system cost them $45,000. If they got it at $250 a watt, that means it cost them $25,000. You can have the same cost, same system, that much variation between. It depends on how pushy some of these salespeople are, what are some of the tactics and doing all those different things. And this is critical when advising your clients. Is it a good idea? Is it a bad idea? So let's kind of look at some numbers behind this, okay? So current situation, 400,000, there's the mortgage interest rate, okay? There's their power bill, 225. So on here, this is how much that person would pay altogether, 2186, if they didn't have solar, okay? Well, let's go put that 10 kilowatt system at 250 a watt on their system. 25,000, let's say they finance all of it, 25,000 at 3.99 over 20 years. That payment is going to be $151. Well, if you add up everything again, they're saving $49 a month. But if they got that same system, okay, at 450 a watt, same system cost them $45,000 a watt. 45 at 399. Now these guys are going to be paying $72 more. So this comes in as we're talking about listing houses. How much is solar worth? Well, a lot of that depends on how much they paid for the house and how much monthly savings is it giving them, right? So as you're talking to people and you want to be proficient, you need to understand price per watt. You need to understand a couple of those things. Let's go into a little bit more numbers and kind of dive into this a little bit. There's 5 different ways to pay for solar. Okay, the most common is this industry financing. The industry financing is borderline predatory, in my opinion, for a couple different reasons. And these are the guys that come in, knock on your door, you know, and hey, you need to buy solar and buy it now. One is they charge solar, the industry. There's Green Sky, Mosaic, Dividend, Sunrun, Lone Pal. There's a whole dozen of them. What they don't tell their consumers is they're getting charged 15 to 35% in dealer fees. The panels, the installation automatically got a 25% increase because of this dealer fee that these financing charge. Now, they charge them that much because it's quick and fast. Here's, give me your last 4 and let's go. Now, another critical thing with this is solar panels have tax credits. Everyone's a little bit different in the state, but what happens with that is they basically, they file a lien on your property. They actually, some people file 2 liens on their property. And they say, all right, here's the amount that you financed. We're gonna file 1 lien for the amount of your tax credit, and then the other lien for the remaining balance. When you get solar on your roof, you're gonna file your tax credits, you're gonna get a tax credit, and then that amount has to go back to us directly. The problem is most people don't do that. The problem is most people spend that money elsewhere, then they're paying more. When we surveyed a lot of our past clients, most of them said they love solar, but they hated the companies they dealt with. And when we dove into why did they hate the companies they dealt with, it's because they felt like this was misleading. As real estate agents, guys, a couple things here is avoiding people to pay this cost is a big pro. This stuff isn't tax deductible, right? So that's industry financing. That's predatory stuff, in my opinion. Here's a snapshot of one of the dealer fees. You can see if somebody had a sub 650 FICO, there was 31% in dealer fees. They were charging these people, if they wanted this 2.99 rate, they were charging them a 20%. Imagine a 20% origination point. Think of it that way. A 32% origination point, a 16-point origination. There's a lot of built-in fees in this stuff. Another type of financing, you might hear leases or PPA agreements. Those are where people don't own the solar on their roof. Another company comes in and basically says, we'd like to put solar on your roof. It doesn't cost you anything. And then you basically are renting the power panels on your roof. Stay away from it. It doesn't increase the value. The customer doesn't own it. And now instead of making their payments to a finance company, they're making them to another company. They might as well just be paying another utility. These leases, again, they can't, because the customer doesn't own the improvement on their roof, the appraiser cannot give it any value. There's no tax advantage. We don't see these a lot in Utah, but you see these a lot in other states. They're pretty prevalent with this. So there's power leases or power purchase agreements. Some people are using second mortgages. It's not bad. They should avoid the dealer fee, But at the same time, most HELOCs are interest only. Most of the time, what we see is people only make the minimum payments, and now they're just changing for a finance fee. I'm going to tell you about this. This is a newer product for us, which is the solar mortgage. Because we basically went through and we saw the problems that we were having, that people were having. This is kind of us getting after it and saying, hey, let's figure out a new way and a better way. Can we do something that increases affordability? It lowers the cost of a home ownership. And so we kind of we put together this Lotility product, which is essentially a solar mortgage. So this is new for you guys. Okay, this is newer to the industry. So if we're talking about being an advisor as a real estate agent, let them know and Corey can talk, and this will be more of a one-on-one with this, but Lotility is that solar mortgage that allows them to combine all things industry finance, or all things renewable energy, energy improvements, energy efficient appliances in some instances, solar, windows, all those different things. If it's going to make a house more affordable to own, we can do some additional lending on that. There's some benefits to this. Let me kind of roll through here. I want to show you this. Let's talk about when they start to combine it in their mortgages. Here is a 400 at 300,000, right? There's your normal payments, 2186. Okay, 3%, 400,000. Your property taxes, your insurance, there's your utility payment. If they added a 10 kilowatt system at $2.50 a watt, okay, and they did outside financing, solar panels, 25,000 at 3.99, right? They're still going to have a little bit of a power bill, but they're going to save $50 a month compared to not doing anything. But if they were to go through and include that in a purchase of a home, and that's kind of what we're going to get into, is how to do this and make you guys really stand out as agents. If they included solar panels in the purchase of a house, we're going to increase their we're going to increase their balance to 425. Okay, same rate, same everything there. But now they don't have this financing payment. So now at 2092, you've just given them $94,000 or $9,400, $94 in savings. So plus they're going to get a $6,500 tax credit. So that $95 in savings, if you said, hey, you're comfortable with $2,200 a month, if they applied that savings to their house, they'd pay off their house in a little over 27 years. No extra liens. You get all that. There's some good stuff there. So this is a newer product that is out in the space, that is backed by PRMI, that is one that we service, and think of it as a giant escrow holdback.
One thing that's important to remember is this: to participate in the Lotility program, there has to be a down payment. It can't be coupled with any sort of Utah housing. It can't be coupled with any sort of 100% financing. It does require the borrower to have some of their own skin in the game.
So we're going to go through a couple of different things there.
So that's what I was wondering, is if this was on a refinance you were showing us, or if it's on a purchase, because if it's on a purchase, that extra $25,000, does the house have to appraise for that extra $25,000? How does that?
Nope, we're gonna go through that right now. I'm gonna show you two different kind of case scenarios. Okay, so these are all just purchases, and then I'll walk through a loan flow, a flow here with this. So this is a 660 borrower with 5% down. Okay, so traditionally 660, $350,000 sales price, a 5% down payment would be $17,500. Rate, APR, this is going to be their traditional mortgage payment. There's their traditional mortgage insurance. They have a traditional power bill of $200 a month. These guys are going to be paying $1,834. Okay, same borrowers, same credit score. We're going to go $350,000. Okay, plus a $20,000 solar system on top of it. We're still going to do that same 5% down payment. The rate would be, they're pretty, on this one, they're actually really good. It's 3%. Well, it was 3%. I haven't looked up today's rate. Today's rate, you're probably 3 1/8, 3 1/4. Okay, on this type of a borrower. But in this, as of a week and a half ago, this was literally verbatim, our same rate on a traditional conventional purchase, and this, it was exactly the same. So this mortgage payment, because now you'll notice there's a little bit of an increase here. There's almost a $70, $80 increase in payment here. That's because we're going to use the subject. We're going to use one of two things: the subject to value or the purchase price plus that appraisal stuff going into it. Jeff, you got a comment or question? Good. Okay. So with this, you'll notice the mortgage payment is a little bit different. Mortgage insurance is still there. Okay. But now the power bill just went to $25 a month versus $200 a month. Basically, you've moved the power payment from their power payment up to their principal and interest line. So this same borrower, okay, their payment would be $1,764. It saves them $80 a month. Plus, they would get this, what, $5,200 tax credit, because right now there's a tax credit involved. So I'll walk through the flow. Let me just give you one more case study. This guy has a 720 credit score with 10% down, okay? Same 350 sales price, 35 grand, 2.875 rate, payment, traditional mortgage insurance, power bill, 1597. Again, 330, 20, their down payment would be 35,000. This rate's going to be a little hair higher. This would be 2.875 as well. Payment, a little bit, mortgage insurance, and then the power bill as well. As again, this one, you're saving $91 a month. So on these purchases, I'm not going to show you the math because I would lose you guys in about 2 seconds as far as how we come up with loan to values and everything else. But think of it as there's 2 different programs that we have to do it. Some of them, the most simplest way we can put it is I can go up to 110% of the sales price. If I, so whatever the sales price is, I can go above the sales price to make those energy efficient improvements. And as we do that, that's where we're able to pull that solar, we're able to pull other energy efficient improvements in there. And so it increases the sales price. It also increases the loan amounts, which enables us to make those improvements, which in turn turns into monthly savings. Now, the beauty of this is sellers can't say no because it has nothing to do with the sellers today, okay? And let me explain with this, because in the past, right now, there is no way in hell a seller would agree to something like this because they would be afraid it would slow it up or they would put on an improvement or something would happen and the transaction would fall through. So if you were to come to this and say, okay, Don, hey, Corey, I've got somebody. Pre-qualification for us right now is super critical because we have to go through and say, all right, here's how much you qualify for, right? This is what you qualify for. This is your buying power. So let's use an example. Somebody qualifies for $400,000. We're going to come back and say, okay, you need to find a house. Your max buying power is going to be in that 350 to 370 range because we need to save about 20 grand on top of that for the power improvements. So we're going to get them all pre-approved, okay, and get them all squared away. They're going to know their budgets. They go out and they shop for a house. And now when you're shopping for a house, you just buy the best house that you can. You make the most aggressive offer that you can. It is just like normal. Nothing solar, nothing energy has to be on that purchase agreement, right? On there, ideally though, you are looking for a 15 to 25 day contingency on the inspections, right? So we want to push those back a little bit. So you get pre-approved, you go shop for a house, you put an offer in, the offer gets accepted. As soon as that offer gets accepted, we're sending out an inspector to look at the house. The inspector, and when I say me, I mean the solar company is looking out to go get an inspection on the house. They're making sure that solar panels on the roof will work. There's no improvements. Everything else is done. So appraisal and solar power and inspector are going out there as quick as we can. Once the inspector comes back, we're going to dial in the final numbers. Let's say somebody was thinking they wanted a 10 kilowatt system. We're going to do an 8 kilowatt system, or we're thinking 8, we're going to do a 10. We were thinking this, they're going to be looking at the electrical boxes. They're going to be looking at all that, right? We will right there. Once we get that inspection back, we're going to finalize those final numbers, right? The consumer gets a chance to say, I like it, let's do it, or let's not, right? The only money they would be out is the inspection and the appraisal. Once we get this, the underwriter is finalizing. We've already done the underwriting up here. Once we do the underwrite, the final underwrite is the underwriter is basically just saying, okay, yep, this home with these improvements, yep, the numbers double check and make sense. Now, at that point, we're going to close and fund. And when we close and fund, the seller gets paid, the agents get paid. Up to this point, it is 100% normal transaction, okay? What we do, it's now just becomes, think of it as an escrow holdback. We're going to disperse 50% of the funds to the solar company or the company doing the improvements. They're going to go in. The sellers are going to move out. Your buyers are going to move in. And basically, the energy efficient improvements are going to start happening. Okay. Once they get done, we disperse 50% of the proceeds. And then once the solar gets put on the roof, then we send back out the appraiser. The appraiser comes back out and says, yep, solar is installed in the roof. We go from a subject to appraisal to an as-is appraisal, and the final disbursements are done. So there is no, seller has no say. Nothing's going to be done on the property while the seller is still in the house. Everything's going to happen there. Basically, what we're doing is combining their solar financing, that ripoff of industry solar financing, and we're adding it to the mortgage, and we're combining those two. So this is a brand new, I shouldn't say a brand new, this is a newer product for us that we're putting a lot of emphasis in right now because of the affordability issues, because of the environmental side of it. I think it's just a great product for the consumer. So this is something to discuss that is a new thing that will help you stand out. Questions, Jeff, anybody?
Yeah, I got a question and a comment. All this sounds great for somebody that wants to put solar on their home, and the end result is a lower monthly payment with all things combined. The biggest problem I see right now is the inspection contingency, how long that is. In this market, as competitive as things are, those are even getting removed.
Yep.
They're within 7 days. Is that something that possibly could be tighter, or is that?
You could move it
works.
up. I mean, getting an inspector out there isn't that hard. So you could literally move it up. An inspector literally could walk out there and take 24 hours. You can move it up. So that's not the issue there as far as getting that moved up. To me, in general, when I would tell this, I would be try to get that. So yes, I totally agree with you, Jeff. Guys, a lot of this too is
well, in this case, the financing wouldn't be contingent upon the inspection, meaning if it didn't come back, it might be contingent upon the buyer wanting to proceed, obviously.
correct.
But it wouldn't be contingent, the financing itself wouldn't be contingent upon it. Because if they looked and they said the roof's not
Yeah.
good, if this house isn't a good candidate for solar, then obviously you proceed without. And that, again, so it wouldn't mess with the transaction other than if the buyer was contingent upon their moving forward with getting solar as part of the purchase.
Got it. So it just opens up an option if it all
Yeah.
kind of lines up
Yeah.
directly. And then Nathan had a question in the chat wondering if this program is available nationwide.
In every state except for New York.
Okay, he's in Oregon, so that works.
So in Oregon. So guys, a lot of this too, as we talk a little bit about this, I'm going to kind of come to a couple other ones. If we talk about what buyers want right now, okay, I can roll through this. This here is probably the most important. This is specific to Salt Lake County. Right now, this is part of the supply and demand issues. We're top 10% in the country in jobs. We're top 10% in the country in median income, right? The median home, this is even low, it's gone updated. But right now, this was as of like 2 months ago, there's 375,000 renters in Salt Lake Valley, okay? 94,000 of them, based on public data, qualified to buy this house, okay? So if we talk about how do you guys stand out as a real estate agent, a lot of these guys, when you read the studies and when you look and see what's going on, a lot of them is, I want solar, I want to be energy efficient. Look at what your major auto dealers are doing. They don't want to buy that old house, they want to buy this smart house. So when you're competing with 10 different agents, you know, when you're competing with those guys, being able to talk professionally about this, being able to understand this, talking about those, if you're going through and discussing with a homeowner, here's an option, and you spend 45 minutes or 30 minutes with a potential buyer, when they walk away from that conversation with you, you guys are going to stand out incredibly because you're going to be talking about something that nobody else is talking about. So it's about standing out. It's about, did you talk to them about affordability and about all the things that go into it? And how are we going to help you to maximize your buying power? You know, the joke I tell people is, look, some agents are door openers. They are Uber drivers and door openers. That's some agents. And then there are other agents out there that are incredible professionals that understand a ton, that will keep you out of trouble and are worth more than the 3% that they get paid because of the value and the advice that they bring in. But you don't get a chance to audition with them and talk with them unless you can keep their interest. If you can understand and stand out to them, if you can get in here and talking about how renewable energies affect them and that this is an option, it's an amazing opportunity to build a relationship and to spend that time with them. As you go through and talk about, hey, yeah, here's a couple different samples. This may or may not work for you, but just know that this is an option. It's about standing out. It's about being different for you guys. But what we are seeing from consumers and the focus groups that we do, when they understand this, it's incredibly powerful because now they can go buy a smart home in there. Like some of the companies we recommend, they'll go through and they'll put solar panels on it. They'll put a Nest, they'll put a wireless doorbell. They basically can turn any home into a smart home. And they can do that after the sellers have moved out and the buyers have moved in. And all they've done is combine the financing on that.
And Don, as far as those energy efficient improvements that they can roll into that, would that include like new double pane windows?
Yes. So there's restrictions. I'm going to tell you yes, but with some big giant asterisks. Okay. Because what we have to look at is if it's double pane to double pane, no. If it is double pane to like it was a single pane window to an energy improvement home, then yes. Sometimes this falls into new furnaces. You can see a house that has an old crappy furnace. The seller doesn't want an improvement. We can pull out the old one and put in an energy efficient one. But these are case specifics. These are not, hey, I talked to these people last night. We saw a house yesterday. We want to put an offer in and I want a new furnace. Like that's not going to happen. Like these are a little bit more labor intensive. When I say labor intensive, understanding the numbers and the economics of going, hey, this is what the house is. This is what it'll be worth when we make those improvements. Here's our adjusted loan amount. There's a big giant calculation worksheet where it comes into where Corey will have to go through that with you guys and understand, all right, here's the math on this. If we do this specific improvement, here's how it affects the down payment. Here's how it affects all those different things. And if they don't have a down payment, like if you're talking with somebody that has less than a 5% down payment, it won't work at all.
So hypothetically, they could find a house that they want. There's not a lot of choices, right? They want to move forward, even though it needs a new furnace, even though it has the crappy single pane windows. So going under contract and then still evaluating if this is a possibility might open that door before closing to do this type of a product, right? Or do you have to start out the pre-qual knowing that you're going to do this product?
I better start off with the pre-approval to understand the credit, to understand what the parameters are. We securitize, let me pull back the covers a little bit more. We securitize these into the secondary markets. We securitize them via Fannie, via Freddie, via FHA, via USDA and VA. Each one of those major back-end insurers looks at these energy efficient transactions differently. And so we have to do the due diligence to understand, all right, Jeff, this borrower, this 660 borrower is going to go here, and this is going to be the cause and effect. It is, it just takes a lot of work. So is it an option? Yes. If we can get them further up, understand what they're approved for, understand their credit, understand which of those different secondary investors we're going to use, it's going to determine the numbers. There's no consistency between each one of those secondary, insurers into the secondary markets there. Does that make sense?
So Corey, if we wanted to open this door for our clients, what would be the best way to initiate? Would it be to go down this path and see what they qualify for? And then if we end up not using it or the house doesn't qualify or for whatever reason, then you roll them into another product?
Yeah, that's what I would say. I mean, if let's say a client that's looking in a certain area and it's likely, I mean, if you're looking in a new subdivision in a newer area, it's not going to be as pertinent. But if I'm looking at an area where all the homes were built in the 40s and 50s, maybe alert me. I'll pre-qual them both ways, kind of go over the numbers both ways. And then as you're out looking, if you find that house that does benefit from the energy efficient stuff, we have that queued up and ready to go. If it doesn't, if it's already been upgraded or it's not applicable in our situation, then we just, obviously we don't utilize that option.
So just one thing that I want to add, we have some agents that are newer on here. And so our market might be a little different than Oregon or maybe even down in the St. George area, where I know we have agents in different spots here. And we even have one in Washington as well. Here in Utah, what I'm seeing across the board out there in the trenches is that things are getting pushed up above appraisal. People need to have cash. So if your people don't have the cash to pay above appraisal, have money to pay their own closing costs, don't even consider this. This is for the people have money. Maybe they're
Correct.
Coming from California and they got $100,000 or they've got a bunch of cash. I just don't want to confuse anyone. This is not a product for everybody. It needs to be those people that have a lot of money. I mean, that's what
They got to
I'm
have the
feeling
ability
right
to
now.
win the bid.
Exactly. That's the key right now is you got to, in the lower price ranges under 500,000 or so, you've just got to be able to win the bid. But those people that have the money and are really interested in solar and saving the world, definitely the clientele for this product.
Absolutely.
Spot on.
Because you're right. I mean, what we're doing is a borrower who came in saying, I've got 10% down. now might be converting to a 3% down program because they're using that other 7% to pay above market. So now they went from being a candidate for this program to not so much being a candidate for this program. So you're right. It's probably for a move up buyer or somebody who has access to funds. It's going to be more applicable. The hope is that, I mean, I know everybody hopes that we're out of this market at some point. So, this is just another tool in your toolbox is what we're hoping. It's a way for you to, even if it's a placebo effect, it's, hey, let me tell you about another cool thing. Because obviously whatever you guys can do to stand out as agents, why should I have you represent me as the buyer's agent? Well, let me tell you, I have access to this, and this. And have you ever thought about this? Even if the borrower says, oh, that doesn't fit my needs, it's still something that you offered that your peers aren't offering. So hopefully it makes them say, these agents know a heck of a lot more than the last guy I talked to.
So
I love it that you mentioned that because
I
we
do
talk
too.
about that a lot in our
Mhm.
trainings is like your clients need to know their options. They don't know what they don't know, right?
Yeah.
So by giving them options, they at least know what they're saying no to or that they could proceed with. So that's a really good point right there is whether it works or not, the fact that you're sharing specialized knowledge with them and your clients is like, wow, my other agent never even talked like this.
Well, they could just bring it up to a relative, or let's say you're talking with someone that's in their, in their 20s or 30s, and they go and they talk to their parents, and their parents are like, well, I didn't know that, and then, you could create a new client because of what you shared. But I'm wondering also on the new builds, because
Yeah,
I'm doing a ton of new builds. We're out, 6, 8 months, 12 months for those buildings to be done. Could we do this on a new build?
yeah, you can do it on a new build. There's nothing with the age. It's the numbers and going through this. I think, Lynn, let me add one quick point to what you were just discussing. What we saw, this was a person sold his house, had to pay above market price to get a house. Now, as a lender, guys, just as a general rule, lenders, we have to use the sales price or the appraised value, whichever is less. To get the offer, he had to pay above the appraised value to get the offer. Paying above the appraised value, that used up his cash to get the house, or not all of his cash, but it used up a higher percentage of cash to get to come in with that difference. And then we use this product to make some improvements on the house. So we added solar. So anyways, as those people that do have cash, they use that to pay above the appraised value, above the asking price. And then they use this a little bit to help making improvements. When we first spoke with him, he was planning on coming in, buying the house and paying cash for solar. Instead, he used the cash to get the house and then financed the solar, financed the energy efficient improvements on that. So yes, it'll work on new builds, but a lot of this comes into each house. How is one done? What is it? It's such a unique case by case that pre-approval, sitting down, going with them and talking through this is so critical on this specific case.
I love it. Anybody else have any other questions? And while we're doing some Q&A here, Don, do you have in your slide deck there a contact slide, just with contact info?
Yeah, a couple things. I guess I'd show you a couple things. So one,
Okay.
Screen grab this. I was going to show you this real quick. Let me show you a couple things here. This is per county, 21,000 here in Salt Lake, 12,000. So this is some of the growth. This is next. This is kind of solar installs for the month. They're expecting this was late. They're about 7,000 to 8,000 that are going to happen next year. But I wanted a couple things. Screen grab this. I'll come back to this. Guys, if we talk about branding and standing out, I would tell you also this. This green certification, this is through the National Association of Realtors. I see a lot of people, the traction we've seen in this space by that demographic of person who being environmentally conscious is super important to them. I think this might be something to consider if you want to use this as a way to generate new business, is something that you might want to consider combined with this product. That it'll really help you to again stand out with your agents. But Corey is the one. Shoot him a text, and then it's one where a lot of work has to be done up front before you guys go shopping for a house. But that effort is one that's rewarded with, by the time you talk about power savings and a smart home, you could be talking, a significant increase in buying power or a lowering the cost of home ownership.
So just for clarification for me, because I'm slow sometimes. So if we got a client that's looking in a specific area that we know is going to be an older home, they're built in the 40s, the 50s, and we know they're going to need some improvements unless it's a really nice, well done flip. It's already been upgraded, right? Or if we've had that conversation that going green is important to them, maybe that's part of our buyer consultation and talking about those as we're getting ready to go shop for homes. And if they fit in one of those boxes, then it would make sense to say, hey, Corey, I want to run this one both ways. But if you're looking at like homes, townhomes that are 5 years old and there's, you're not going to put solar panel on a townhome anyway. And then it wouldn't be something like, hey, like, let's do this on every single buyer. I think it's a conversation on a buyer consult.
Yeah, I would definitely make it part of your consult, and if that's important to them, then let's have that discussion. And again, then it's okay, what are we looking at? Because I mean, I'm sure you guys have borrowers who come in and say, I want a newer home. I want something that's built in the last 5 years because that's what's important to me. That then right there, we weed that out. If I know that's not very many, because right now it's, beggars can't be choosers. I want a house. And I want it to be somewhere in this 100-mile radius. I mean, it's getting crazy, I know. So obviously, it can be, if it's broad, then let's have a general discussion. If it's very generalized or very specific and it's in an area that it's going to be applicable, then let's take that next step of getting them qualified under that program as well.
I love it. I love it. And just remind you what Corey said before, just have the conversation and bring it up. It shows how much you're looking out for their best interests over and above your own. You're not just trying to get the home sold. So bringing up something for them to at least consider whether they take it or not is a huge plus.
Well, and we have a lot of cash buyers coming in here. I mean, I know we do. And so they're coming in, they are pushing our values up. And I would think a lot of those people, they are coming from California, other states. They might really be into the solar.
Sorry, were you done?
Never.
You're never done. So I just thought of another question. Sorry. And you guys are going to have to just chime in if you got a question, but what if there's solar already on a home? That they're showing to a client, the buyer's looking at, there's already solar panels on the home. What's the best way to help our clients do due diligence and investigation on what they're inheriting?
So fastest thing that you want is you want to get a title check on that property. You want to understand what kind of financing, or if they know the questions, how did they put that on the house? Was it a lease? If it's a lease, you got to make sure your borrower wants to install that lease. But how much did they pay for it? Most of the time, those liens, the seller is going to have to pay that off when you guys purchase your house. Really, if you guys can come across a house with solar onto it, if they're maybe hesitant, they're literally walking into a sweetheart deal if solar's already on the house, because it comes back to those comparisons I was trying to click through here. They're already buying a house that has the power savings built in. And so, I mean, it's a fantastic steal. There is a system called, I would write down Pearls, just Google Pearls Solar. They're a third-party company that basically is home inspectors specifically around solar. They're the only ones that are still there. A lot of the other public utilities that used to offer it from free 6 months ago or 8 months ago, I talked about a couple of them that were done for free. Those no longer exist with COVID. So Pearls is a third-party company, great for buying or selling, but you want to look at, is there a lien, making sure it's getting paid off, and then really just, man, you're getting a sweetheart deal. Smoke, I mean, it's a great one.
I know we've come across them where it's been a barrier to sale, because if somebody had maximum financing and then threw a $45,000 lien on top, they might not be able to sell they can't get out of the house what they've dumped into it, or what they owe on it, I should say, what the liens total. So in those cases, it's going to be really tough. I mean, obviously, somebody coming in and buying, I don't know, it would, because you find them finance above and beyond on.
Nope.
It has to be a new system, right?
That's why we saw so many homeowners, why we created this program, is because it was separate. They didn't understand the liens. They didn't understand what they want. What you can do is you would have to negotiate with the lien holder, Green Sky, Mosaic, Dividend. Will they take the loan and transfer it over to this new person? And most of them right now are saying, nope, sorry, don't sell your house, pound sand.
And that 110% financing option you're talking about is about making improvements to what they're
not buying above and beyond existing value.
Yes.
I did run into that one on a property where I don't know what changed in the seller's life, that they were selling 2 months after they installed brand new solar panels.
Yeah.
And that was tacked on to the purchase price, and they basically pulled it off the market once they found out they couldn't do it.
Yeah. And a lot of this, guys, comes back to, as a professional, hey, what do you think about solar? How does it affect real estate? I mean, we didn't even get into how does solar affect appraisals and values and doing those different things. And we could do another class on just how solar affects appraised values and how that goes into it.
But in a nutshell, it's not dollar for dollar.
It is not dollar for
If
dollar.
somebody spends $45,000 on a system, they're being told by some of these unscrupulous solar reps that your house just went up 45 grand. It did not.
Not at all.
It did if the neighbor's house had solar and sold for $45,000 more. But as you guys know, and as I've did in my other class, it's based on historical data. It's not based on, what's going to happen 6 months from now or even a month from now. So
And that's another great talking point, Corey, too, is how long are you going to live in this house?
Exactly.
The take, I shouldn't say the takeaway in that discussion aspect of it, to live in a house, you have to have power. Do you want to pay the power company or do you want to try to maximize this? What I love about this product is now your utility payment, your power payment is going from gone forever to now essentially your power payment is now going towards paying off your home faster. It's a talking point. It makes you stand out. It makes you be different. It's about, to that person who's a numbers and cents, a numbers and a data guy, it's one of those things where like, hey, let's maximize your buying power. Let's maximize everything you can do here. And it gives a lot of people the warm and fuzzies.
I love it. I love it. Who else has questions?
I had a question. One thing I was curious about, you mentioned earlier in the presentation that solar wasn't going to be becoming more efficient in the future. Could you elaborate on the specifics why that is?
So if we look at the gains, so there's when you look at a solar panel and how big the panel is compared to how much energy it's producing, if you look at the improvements that have been made, I'm going to show you, I'm looking for my one. Sorry, there's right here. So if you look in this bottom left picture, right, 25-year parts and performance labor warranty. So when they talk about this performance warranty, you kind of come in here to the numbers and data, the age of the panels and how much there's a slight reduction in functionality. And what we've seen is we've kind of hit that, we've kind of hit, I want to say a ceiling there, just the improvements aren't that great. I mean, from the most expensive panel in the world, super most expensive high end to a mediocre one, there's really not that much of a gap. They're not becoming more efficient. They're not becoming an increase of power, like for this says this can put out that much more power. There's improvements there, but there's just not a ton. Most of the improvements are coming in batteries, frankly.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
So yeah, the technology is getting better, but just little by little.
So it's based off kind of like the dimensions of the solar panel where you
Correct.
Well, you only have so much roof surface area, obviously, to work with, and the way to get more and more would be to increase your surface area, which you have limitations that you can't control in that case.
Now the panels are getting skinnier, like the ones that you see here on this roof, those are getting thinner. And to me, in the solar world, you hear on black. See, this one is black with silver, but you get a black on black, super skinny profile, and they look pretty good. Some of these silver borders, it's more has to do with the aesthetics than the functionality of a specific solar panel.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great questions, though, Zane. Yeah, great questions. Cool. I think, Jeff, wrapping up, where I see, guys, if we talk about where we're at today and where we are in the future, in my opinion, if I were to put where we're headed to in the future, 2, 3, 5, 6 years down the road, I feel like if we talk about lowering the cost of home ownership, I think you will see more and more, especially with this administration. And by the end of this administration, I think you'll see more people purchasing solar panels. I think you'll see this upper left-hand car driving electrical cars. If you were to come get rid of your power payment, combine your power payment, your mortgage payment, and if you were to get rid of your gasoline payment and put that into renewable energies with electric and stuff like that, your total cost to live every month is going to continue to compress from some of those energy efficiency side of stuff. And so 2 years from now, 3 years from now, you'll be able to say, I remember sitting on a conference call on a Zoom meeting talking about where this stuff was going. And I see more electric cars. I see solar panels heading to battery storage, heading to, while you're at work or while you're gone, your batteries are charging so that when you come home, it charges your car, and your total cost of ownership and cost of using everything is going to continue to compress that way, is where I see this industry heading. I think this is going to become a bigger and bigger play as the real estate world develops.
Awesome, Don. Great information. I know I took a bunch of notes. And guys, I'll get this slide deck from Don as well, unless I already have it. Anybody else? Final questions? Go back to that contact slide real quick, Don, in case anybody didn't get a screenshot of that.
Yeah, I'll shoot it over to you. I'll switch this over to.
And I can answer questions, obviously, regardless of what state you're in. And we do have I only cover Utah, but I have loan officers that I can refer to that have access to the same program that are in most all states, like I said, I think except New York, as Don mentioned.
Yeah.